So my last video may have left some people thinking that I did not pass the Florida bar exam because I just left off on, I think it was the number of questions that I did preparing for it. That's not true. I did pass. I don't know how much better than average I did, but it was like 20 points over what I needed, so definitely some room to spare. And I thought that, while maybe it would have been ideal for me to just continue making content as I became a lawyer, I think it was also and will be also useful to have taken, at this point it's almost been 2 years, so I can definitely give a full rundown of what it's like to be a first year big law, in quotations, transactional associate practicing real estate and business law. I put big law in quotations because while I did write a little guide on how to get through law school, do well in law school, and land a big law job, ironically, I'm not sure if I even landed a big law job, which is kind of embarrassing. I think Redditors and other people, for better or for worse, would say I landed more of a mid-law job because I'm not in a major metro. My firm does not pay on the Cravath scale. But it is in the AmLaw 200. I think it just moved up to 147 or something, and it's not an insurance defense firm. I guess we also do that, but I'm in the business group and get to work on some pretty crazy stuff. Maybe the difference is not everything is like news-shattering headlines that we work on as far as transactions, but there's definitely some big ones in there, and also it's kind of cool to have the littler ones as well, especially as like a young associate, so you can get your hands dirty and work on real stuff immediately, as opposed to just doing like exhibits or kind of paralegal work if maybe you're at a bigger firm. Anyways, all of this is to say, here is my review of year one of a big law associate. I guess I could start with what I expected going in, which, to give a little background, I'm a first-generation lawyer. No one in my family has ever been a lawyer, to my knowledge. If they were, it was a long, long time ago, and I'd have to go through historical records to dig that up. So, going back to my great-grandparents, no one in my family has been a lawyer, no one that I've met, which is changing because one of my family members just got into law school, so we're multiplying. All that's to say, I don't think I knew what to expect, and that's after going through law school, having internships, like obsessively scrolling Reddit, talking to lawyers, and I'm not sure that it's something that can be put into words. It's very much of like a trade, like HVAC or something. There's only so much they can teach you in school, and then you go into it and all of it's completely different, definitely from law school, and even from what people can describe about it. Like, no one can really put into words like moving a transaction forward, or I guess you could put into words being available, and but in terms of like the partner giving you a task and your ability to act on it, that the gap from him just being able to say what he wants to say, which is like, hey, like review title for real estate, and what at the beginning of starting your job is so, that knowledge gap is so vast that it's just, yeah, it's really hard, and it's a big shock, especially if you like, in my head I'm thinking maybe if you had like a sibling or like a best friend that was doing it before, and you talk to them all the time, like maybe you'd have a better idea, because like the things that you need to be doing can be broken down like kind of colloquially. So yeah, there's a huge learning curve just in like what to expect, mean, billing your time, which the rumors are true, that sucks and is probably the worst part of the job. I think the best thing someone could do, and I am only saying this because the partner I get all my work from pretty much complimented me on this early, was just, being eager to learn and listening to what they have to say. I guess that can be an issue too if you kind of go in, like, you definitely don't want to be talking over the partner, for maybe courtesy reasons, but more so just because, like, you really don't know. At least I really didn't know what was going on, and that was the best way that I found to learn the practice and the terms. And I think I'm almost 2 years in now. I mean, I'm halfway through my second full year, but I started in August, a little bit before. So, and I feel like just now at about 1.5, I guess partner years in, I'm finally have a hold on, like, what this job entails. And I think a big part of it is just keeping your clients organized. I think a big part of it is moving the transaction forward. Like, they kind of pay you to keep things organized. I think in a perfect world, they wouldn't have to look at the contract, they wouldn't have to look at the documents. Like, in a perfect world, they could literally get on a call and, like, I think in a maybe in an AI world, they could just beam their thoughts to you and you could put it on paper. They don't even have to talk to you. But in today's perfect client environment, when they're talking to a lawyer about a business transaction, I think it would be keeping them organized, following up. Like, for me, I'm kind of a type B person, so I feel like I'm being annoying when I'm, send multiple emails or poke people multiple times about certain things. But really, in today's day and age, I think that's a big part of what transactional lawyers are being paid to do. So that is definitely something that I am still working on and had to kind of get used to. And they appreciate it too. I feel like I didn't realize it until the partner I work for kind of got on me about it. And then I started doing it, and then I started getting, like, appreciative comments from the client. Just, nothing crazy, just like, hey, thanks for staying on me about this. But that kind of blew my mind, like, oh wow, you want me to be annoying, and it's not annoying. So I feel like that's part of moving the transaction forward, staying organized, which wasn't ever super organized, so that's also something I've had to learn. But there's obviously the whole premise of what we're doing is, minimizing risk and presenting risk and presenting ways to minimize it and making sure that everything the client is doing is within applicable law and all that. But it's not. It's about, I'd say it's 50-50. 50% of it is actually advising on the law, and specific issues will come up that you write a memo on. But a lot of it is, like, just kind of the day-to-day, like, hey, this changed, we got to update the agreement, like, even just putting in the client's business terms, and structuring them in a way that is not only legal, but also just makes sense and is easy. So, I think I think part of what separates it, and granted, I'm 1.5, 2 years in, so I'm sure this will change. But I think so far what kind of makes a good contract is, obviously, you're advising the client on how to stay within the bounds of the law, and you're also trying to give them a better position against, the buyer or seller, depending on what their role is. But it's also just kind of for both parties, and especially when there's another collaborative lawyer on the other side. Say our client's the buyer, they're representing the seller, just making the transaction smooth and putting in things that make sense for, because some of these things, when you talk about big, complicated, especially real estate transactions, like, and even some business, I'm less familiar. I mean, there's so many moving parts that it's not like when the contract closes and you move past it, or even before a contract closes. I mean, these things go on for years, and there's so many different things that change. There's so many different mechanics that you need to just account for in advance, or else, you're putting your client in a worse position, which is also another part of our job, not just keeping them within the law, but also, maybe we could split it into thirds. One third is, I guess there's two different segments. There's like risk advising via just one-off things related to a transaction, and then there's organizing and driving the deal forward in that respect. And then when it comes to the actual contract negotiation and ancillary document negotiation, then they're paying you to keep you organized, keep everything organized, because there's a ton of provisions, ton of changes, could be a ton of exhibits and ancillary documents, and just the mechanisms within the contract so that's one. Two, to put your client in a better position than if they, didn't hire an attorney. And that could be done by, knowing the law and knowing how to stay within the bounds, but while also, giving your client the result that they want. And then the third is putting in stuff that makes their life easier in the long run. So, and that's not as combative with the other side and their attorneys. That could be more collaborative. And that's kind of what I was talking about, putting in things in a contract that actually makes sense. So that's some of the practical things I've learned. I think I've also learned that it's as advanced as we're getting as a society with AI and stuff, there's definitely certain people like to see an office presence for sure, and that's a completely fair point. I think a lot of the attorneys in the office, when they were my age and our age, coming out of law school or early associate, I mean, you're supposed to live at the office. So I'm sure an associate even having a couple work from home remote days is like this crazy privilege and unheard concept. So there's somewhat of an unwillingness, I think, to accept remote work a little bit, which I think is, completely fair, and also just depends on the person whether or not they can get their work done at home as efficiently as they can in the office. And I think it depends on the partner you work for too. Like, are they fully remote? Are they in the office? I think results may vary on that one. Some other things I didn't really expect, and I've heard, I'm actually stealing someone else's line. I don't know where I saw this, or I think I read it. At least the modern day transactional side of law is very monastic, and I mean, obviously that comes from monastery monks living in solitude in prayer all day, because it's cool. I don't know, what other entry-level job, because these are entry-level jobs, you get it straight out of school, and most of us have not had a job before, at least a real working professional job. It's you get your own office and everything is on the computer. So, and it's more I mean, even if your partner is right down the hallway, it's more efficient to pick up the phone or send an email a lot of times, because you can reference the document right in front of you. You can snip provisions and send them in your email, or you can, like I said, reference the document right in front of you. I think unless you want to print everything out, bring it to their office, and then even then, it's like, are you guys looking at the same thing? Sometimes things can get lost in translation when you're dealing with, a ton of verbose contracts, and it's just easier to be online, and thus, because everyone's in their own offices, because everything's online, there's not really an incentive to talk to anyone else or to really even leave your office. I think sometimes it's easier if they're walking by, or there's really something that needs to be like kind of fleshed out verbally, but even sometimes, like, you think that could have just been an email and maybe it would have been easier. And the billable hour, kind of incentivizes you not to talk to anyone in the office, because every time you're, shooting the shit, you're not billing on a client matter. So that's another thing. I'll probably make a part 2, or just update this and make another video as I think of things. But I think right now those are some kind of things I didn't expect, things that were personal to me as a first year big law, mid law, transactional associate. And hopefully you find that helpful. And I'm gonna get back on the YouTube grind, posting these driving home from work, and